Government corruption has never been more prevalent or caused more harm. It's why extremism is on the rise. It's why the financial gap between the haves and have-nots has never been wider. And it's why our planet is at risk of an extinction level tragedy. That's why I need your help to keep exposing the truth about the rot on both sides of the aisle. Become a supporter or a friend of the show today by clicking on the coffee link in the description box below. Friends of the show join me on a Zoom hangout once a month, and you guys can ask me any questions you want, and I can get to know you better. But the most important reason to help is to keep the show alive. Together, we can and will save our country and our planet. Thanks in advance and enjoy the show. Everyone, welcome to the show. I have an update to share about one of Trump's Capitol insurrectionists. It's time for an episode of Where Are They Now?
Matthew Bledsoe was arrested.
Patrick Montgomery was in court.
Jonathan Manapa will stay in federal custody.
No, I don't take responsibility at all.
So 49-year-old Texas resident Guy Reffitt is a defendant you're definitely going to remember. Prior to January 6th, Reffitt's son contacted the FBI to report that his father was part of a militia group and that he was planning something big. That was a direct quote. However, he wasn't contacted by the FBI until after January 6th, because that's when Reffitt was captured on video at the Capitol. He was wearing a tactical vest, a helmet with a GoPro camera, and Reffitt's GoPro captured his threats against members of Congress. He was talking with other members of the mob, and Reffitt repeatedly stated his intention to enter the Capitol, and he was heard yelling, quote, "I'm taking the Capitol with everybody fucking else. We're all going to drag them motherfuckers out kicking and screaming. I don't give a shit. I just want to see Pelosi's head hit every fucking stair on the way out, and Mitch McConnell too. Fuck them all. It's time to take our country back. I think we have the numbers to make it happen." And then it was later revealed by Reffitt's family and then confirmed by the man who traveled to DC with Reffitt that he was carrying a pistol and flexi cuffs that day. He had the pistol in his waistband, and he had an AR-15 in his vehicle. Reffitt was also seen on video within the restricted area of the Capitol. He was aggressively advancing toward officers, and he was obviously attempting to reach the building. In fact, it wasn't until they hit him directly in the face with pepper spray that he finally backed off. And then on the drive back home, and also when Reffitt returned home, he continued to talk about his plans to overthrow the government. He was bragging about what he did, and Reffitt warned that January 6th was just the beginning. And he was telling his family, his friends, he did like a Zoom call talking about how great it was, how he was the tip of the spear. Well, unbeknownst to Reffitt, his adult son was recording some of their conversations, and he shared them with the FBI. And he had good reason to. Upon returning home, Reffitt warned his son and his eldest daughter that if they turned him in, they were traitors, and quote, "traitors get shot." And according to Reffitt's children and his wife, he has a history of making violent threats against them. They've all confirmed that Reffitt pulled a gun numerous times on his wife and threatened to shoot her for various reasons. So Reffitt was arrested on January 19th of last year. He was hit with 2 superseding indictments after he was initially charged. And Reffitt refused to take a plea deal, opting instead for a jury trial. In fact, he was the first person to go to trial for January 6th. And in March of this year, he was found guilty on all counts by a jury of his peers. Reffitt was found guilty of 2 counts of civil disorder, obstructing an official proceeding, entering restricted grounds with a deadly or dangerous weapon, and 1 count of witness tampering. So he was facing up to 20 years in prison, 5 years of probation, and $250,000 in fines. And for once, the prosecutor actually was looking for real justice. Rather than following the federal sentencing guidelines, the prosecutor requested a sentencing enhancement for terrorism. They argued that Reffitt didn't just plan to obstruct the vote count that day, that he planned, based on the evidence, to remove and replace elected leaders. and take over the government. Reffitt's defense, on the other hand, asked for a downward departure from the federal sentencing guidelines. They argued, Reffitt didn't harm anyone. He didn't physically attack anyone at the Capitol. Well, at the sentencing hearing today, the judge declined to impose the terrorism enhancement. That made me very nervous. She said that it would create a, quote, unwarranted sentencing disparity with other defendants who physically attacked the police, which I find funny because this judge is U.S. District Judge Dabney Friedrich. She presided over the case. She is a Trump-appointed suck-up, typically, and she has been sentencing far below what other judges have been sentencing. So I find it hilarious that she's pointing out sentencing disparities when other judges are giving these people more realistic sentences and she's giving them Netflix and chill. Anyway, she told the prosecutor, quote, "You're making recommendations that are way different than you're making in this case, way different." Judge Friedrich also said, quote, "His decision to exercise his constitutional right to go to trial should not result in a dramatically different sentence." Really? No, sorry. It absolutely should. You accept a plea deal for that very reason. Why would anyone take a plea deal if they can just get the same sentence after wasting the court and the jury's time? So anyway, the judge did agree that Reffitt's possession of a weapon did merit some consideration, but she asked, quote, "Does the firearm deserve 3 times the sentence if it was not brandished or used in any way?" Friedrich did, however, note that Reffitt suffers from delusions of grandeur. She said, quote, "He wants to be the big guy, the first to try to storm the Capitol, the first to go to trial. Clearly, that's what he wants." Reffitt spoke on his own behalf. He told the court, quote, "I clearly fucked up." Then he called himself a, quote, "fucking idiot." And he said, quote, "I did want to definitely make an apology, multiple apologies really, and accept my responsibility because I do hate what I did. I do think everyone deserves to hear my apology. It's very clear I have an issue with just rambling and saying stupid shit." He also claims that he no longer wants to associate with any militia group or, quote, "any stupid shit like that." And he stated, quote, "I was a little too crazy. I was not thinking clearly." So this is a far cry from what he's been saying from behind bars. Reffitt has been incarcerated since his arrest because of the dangerousness of his threats, what he planned on doing after the fact. Since his arrest, he has made repeated statements calling himself a political prisoner, a martyr. He said he's a patriot. I'm sorry, no, I don't believe any of these patriots anymore. They're as full of shit as Trump is. Reffitt's daughter also spoke at the hearing. She said, quote, "My father's name was not on all the flags that were there that day, that everyone was carrying that day. It was another man's name. He was not the leader." In addition, U.S. Capitol Police Officer Shawnee Kirkhoff read her victim impact statement in court. She asked for the maximum sentence to be imposed, and she said, quote, "His actions weren't acts of patriotism. They were acts of domestic terrorism." And then Officer Kirkhoff also cited Reffitt's lack of remorse, how he bragged about his actions after the fact, and the chaos that he helped to foment as a reason for why she wanted him to get the maximum. And she was the final officer to engage with him, who ended up spraying him in the face with pepper spray because he just kept advancing past officers. So in the end, Judge Friedrich actually surprised me. She called Reffitt's apology, quote, half-hearted, and she said, quote, "What he and others who attacked the Capitol on January 6th did is the antithesis of patriotism." Then Judge Friedrich also pointed out, quote, "It's really disturbing that he repeatedly persists with these views that are way outside the mainstream. His claims are wrong." She also noted that in regard to his threats against Nancy Pelosi and others, quote, "To this day, he has not disavowed those comments." And with that, she gave Reffitt the longest sentence so far, 87 months in prison, 3 years of probation, and a $2,000 fine. And the judge also said that she would require mental health treatment while he's incarcerated. So Reffitt is going to spend in total more than 7 years behind bars for a lie. All for a lie. 7 years without your family for a lie. And as I mentioned, though, he's already been in jail for quite some time, so I'm sure he's going to get time served. I seriously thought, though, based on what she was saying, that she was going to give him time served. Like, I thought that would be it, essentially a little over 2 years, and she'd send him home. So look who else found her ovaries all of a sudden. Anyway, guys, this was a good outcome, I think. Wasn't the 15 years. But I get it. He didn't physically attack anyone, but he did have intentions. And it does sound like if he wasn't stopped, who knows what he would have done? If he thought he had gotten away with it and they didn't arrest him and, hadn't been incarcerated this whole time, it's anybody's guess what this guy was capable of. If you're willing to pull a gun on your own wife, on someone you are supposedly in love with, and threaten your children, what are you going to do to strangers? So I do hope he gets the help that he needs. So far, 2 years in prison or in jail, and he hasn't made any progress from the statements that he's made. Anyway, guys, I'll let you know when and if I hear more. Thanks so much for watching and listening. Take care, and I'll talk with you soon.